Hello, everybody, and welcome today to Guildmaster Gaming. Today we have James Smith, and he's got a micro short that we're going to be talking about called Demons in the Closet. So, James, why don't you give us a brief description about your movie?
Yeah, my film Demons in the Closet is all about like a resident who's challenged by demons inside of his closet. And I don't want to give too much information away because it's very short and tight, action-packed. And yeah, it's about a guy who faces demons in his wardrobe and action-packed and slashes them everywhere.
Yeah. So, if you're not familiar, like what we're saying, a micro short, that's usually something under 5 minutes, or something of that nature. And if I remember correctly, Demons in the Closet runs about a minute runtime.
Yeah, it's very short. Yeah, it's yeah a bit above 1 minute. Yeah, 1 minute 20. Uh,
So yeah. So
yeah,
I
20
I
something.
also write flash fiction, so I understand about having to try to get those stories under 1,000 words. And so I understand this fast-paced movement you're talking about. Did you find it difficult to pull together an entire story and be able to tell it in that short of a time frame?
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's quite a challenge. Even you have to. In the end, you have to keep it a bit simple. You have to have a basic idea, basic concept, and try to make it a bit complex within this limitation you have. It's weird to describe it, but when you animate such a short and fast-paced action film, yeah, it's short, but it does have to have like a kind of story to make it engaging for the audience, sure. But it's challenging, sure. Even yeah, finding making it as tight and having a good opening and ending sequence. It's a challenge, yeah.
Yeah. So I work with other authors, and we're actually working right now. I'm finishing up an anthology of flash fiction with a bunch of new writers. So when you're doing that, we always talk about with the writers that you have to make everything do double duty. That your words and everything count, doing moving different aspects along. Now, in yours, since you're doing claymation, did you use a lot of that? Like I noticed in the background of that, all the little tweaks and everything. Was that a part of how you were trying to make sure to build that whole momentum to your story?
Um, well, uh, you mean what do you mean exactly with
So so you have your
yeah,
main characters up front and they're doing their thing. But I kind of
yeah.
noticed there's little tweaks going on in the scene as you're going through with not just the characters, but
Ah, I
the whole
see.
setting. And
Yeah.
so I guess what I'm asking is your process of coming up with the ideas and getting the right look. What was some of the things that you went through to get the look that you wanted?
Oh, I see, I see. Yeah, the set design, yeah, of course. Yeah, I've actually looked quite a long time for this red background that was quite like flashy and humanly, and yeah, to make it a disgusting and bloody atmosphere. And it's like very hellish, you kind of hellish and demonic, where the creatures of hell live in this closet. And yeah, also trying to have different characters moving all at once in some sequences while the protagonist doing something there. And yeah, it is very fast paced, everything moves. And yeah, and also having this contrast between this fast paced action scenario inside the closet and the contrast between the, yeah, well, not that kind of peaceful, but more peaceful on the outside, out of the closet. So, yeah, keeping making kind of a contrast with these two worlds, combining these two worlds. Yeah.
So, the monsters in the closet or demons in the closet is kind of an almost a cliche type story for children's, bedtime stories and everything. So you've taken yours and you've provided a twist. Now we can see where you started, but can you kind of walk us through some of the process, how you developed your particular take on this story?
Yeah, of course. Well, I wanted to create a story about like a guy. In the end, I wanted to create a story about a guy who's rescued by his dog. So that was the main idea I had all along. And yeah, it's kind of a children's story. Um, well, yeah, and using these demons and these creatures to have these horror elements and genre elements, and in the end, he has to find himself in the closet and escape from all the creatures back to his house again to reconnect with his dog and to the normal world, I know. And so yeah, it's kind of a cliche movie. It's a cliche action film, of course, with lots of blood and gore, and very slashy and slasher based, like old school 80s cinema. Um, yeah, but
Okay.
with this little twist with the dog. I know. Yeah, that was actually the thing that drove me to make this movie. This scene with the dog, or especially the dog, integrating the dog into the film, having him helping the human to, escape the closet again. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned your genre, that you had to catch all the genre elements. So the two films that I've been able to watch of yours have both been in the horror genre. So what is it about that genre that draws you to tell stories?
Well, I always loved horror movies, but especially the body horror movies of the 80s, like Hellraiser and no, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, these cliche horrific films with lots of practical effects. And I think over the time, like these days, you don't see lots of practical effects. I think it's coming back again this year or last year, it's coming back again. These practical effects they get integrated into feature films. But a long time ago, it was mostly like CGI, and that always was quite exhausting to me to watch. And bringing back the practical effects into the horror was the main goal of mine. Yeah, and that's what I like about horror movies, actually. Well, I think the most, and frighten the people watching the films and making it entertaining. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I agree with you. There is a revitalization of practical effects coming out. And yours was one of several films that showed at the film festival that were all practical effects with, no CGI. Now
Yeah.
yours is a little bit different because you're going with animation, but it's not, you're doing with clay modeling.
Yeah, yeah.
So what is it that draws you to clay and doing
Yeah.
modeling that way?
Well, I'm doing this now for a very long time, and claymation and stop motion was always at the beginning the most approachable to have in my hands. And I'm doing this now. I started when I was like 10 years old. And as a 10-year-old kid, like I wasn't really good at 2D animation. It was very complicated. So I started with stop motion. Even that was complicated for me at the time. But over the years, I got better when animating within stop motion boundaries. And yeah, that was actually my main interest, and also like it's like claymation movies or animated films. I always loved like Studio Ghibli movies, like 2D animated films, also like Wallace and Grommet films, or Robot Chicken, what they do, or like the guys who do South Park. They did also like the first things in stop motion with like but on paper. But what drives me to claymation, yeah, it's mostly like Artman Studios, like the guys who did Wallace and Gromit influenced me to make stop motion films. It all looked always really cool, and you can create your own characters. You don't have to think long and use different software on the computer. You just can model it all together and see what works. And yeah, that's what I like about stop motion, and that it has a real aesthetic. Like it doesn't look fakish. I don't know. It looks really organic sometimes. It sounds a bit weird because it's not real, but I get you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it has that feel because you can see the same model being used throughout. That's what I think.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
sometimes you see the little dust particles on the figures or like fingerprints. I don't know, it's happened accidentally. And yeah, even in the big studio films, like in Artman Studio, you see little dust elements on the characters. I thought, oh, that looks so awesome. Like you can see that the person crafted these characters.
So I'm always asked when I tell people that I see a stop motion film about how long does it take? So, and I'm sure you get asked that a lot too. It's like
Yeah.
here you have a 1 minute film, and but how long did it take to set that up and get the stop motion part, all the photography work done?
Oh, this one took a long time. I think this one took me 2 months to complete. I needed 2 intense weeks of animating it all together, but I planned a lot beforehand. Like sometimes I worked like 15 hours a day, but I had like off work as holidays for that time, 2 weeks of work, so I could concentrate on my animation project and animating it all together. And yeah, it took me about 2 weeks to animate it all, but I planned a lot beforehand. Sometimes I notice when I plan too much, it can ruin the scene. So sometimes I even improvise within the animation, which can lead to even more time I need to animate. And yeah, then 4 weeks to edit all together and sound design and yeah, that's about it. And also like marketing stuff and sending it out to festivals. Yeah, it took me about in the end it took me 2 months to complete. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 2 weeks to. Yeah, I think that's really kind of interesting for people to understand that there's a lot that goes into these type of animation projects. Uh, but it sounds like from just watching your expression as you do it, there's a lot of fun involved when you get your hands on that clay and start going.
Yeah, it's a dirty process. Yeah, it's very like even with the blood and with the clay and everything. And sometimes it's a bit like sometimes I'm a bit tired when I'm animate or some frustrated because sometimes it doesn't work and you have to think your way around it because the characters can morph into different shapes and you have to sometimes you have to think really quickly to don't ruin the scene imperatively. So you can't go back. You can with stop motion you can't go back. Always can go forward and you can't reduce certain scenes with lots of blood and slash. So you have to when there is all the blood on the characters, you can't redo the scenes. You have to build all the characters again. And that's something I always try to avoid. So yeah, you get yourself dirty, you get yourself always it's a messy process with all the clay. Sometimes the whole trouser is full of fake blood and clay. So yeah, it's messy.
I was actually talking to one person once. They weren't doing clay, they were using smaller models. And they said, we were doing great until the arm broke off.
Yeah,
It's, it's like,
I
oh no, what
agree.
do we do now? So yeah.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about where you came from and why horror and some of your inspirations for horror, and that you started doing this, making movies back, doing claymation back when you were 10 years old. So what were some of your inspirations to want to become a storyteller and a filmmaker?
Yeah, well, at that age, I think I mostly liked, I think Wallace and Grommet, when I saw that film, this Rare Rabbit in the cinema when I was like very young, it really inspired me to create animated films. And at that time, stop motion was always like most approachable to me. Yeah, other different animated series like South Park and also like Robot Chicken, what they do with, with animated animation is also really fantastic. And also like feature films like stuff by the Coen brothers, like how they tell stories. Yeah, books. I'm like I don't have one specific inspiration, but I think Artman Studios and Wallace and Gromit is a big one, and yeah, lots of independent films. YouTube animators. I don't know, so many people inspired me.
So you're saying you still get inspiration just by going out and consuming other people's work?
Yeah, sure, definitely, definitely. I think even when I was younger, like watching some short films or films on YouTube, or some very high qualitative films on YouTube you can find there. So yeah, lots of people inspired me from other YouTubers or other professional filmmakers or feature filmmakers. Also, like in literature, there's lots of books or I think different mediums. Like even like songs inspire me to create something or if a song has a certain rhythm or a certain meaning behind the lyrics, I also get inspired by this. Yeah, it
Okay.
depends.
So you mentioned Wallace and Gromit, so I got to ask, have you ever had Stinky Bishop cheese?
So-
Just having some fun there. I am a big fan of stop motion animation, and Wallace and Grommet is such a my wife and I joke around because we'll get cheese and I'll hear her say in the background, cheese, Grommet. So it's
Yeah.
so that's really a lot of fun. Hearing that, a fellow person that likes some of the same things and going back and where you're getting your inspiration is so many other places. I think from what I've talked to people, that is for a creative mind. That is one of the things I try to tell people is, go beyond what you normally will do outside of what your area, your genre, and consume other
Yeah.
people's to get inspiration. It sounds like you do that. Um, so you're talking music and all these other things. Besides the artistic areas, what do you do? I mean, like you're saying, it gets pretty intense when you're doing the filming because of trying everything going. So what does James do to kind of relax and get away from it, to allow that brain to kind of recuperate and start on the next project?
Yeah, well, I mostly like do music that keeps me calm, like playing the guitar or the bass guitar or producing some music always keeps me calm and relaxed. But also like even like sometimes animation or watching the animation in the end keeps me somehow like to a point that I want to create another project. So this motivates me. Like yeah, but I think music keeps me calm or like sometimes well, I also get my ideas from like real life or sometimes I always grew up with dogs and when going out with the dog or something and then I get inspired. I don't know. Yeah, it's yeah, there are lots of inspirations, yeah, and yeah.
Okay. So here's a question I've usually asked everybody, just because, here you've got several movies that you've created and got them out there. If you had a new filmmaker coming to you and saying, "Hey, I want to get into the industry, I want to be a filmmaker," what advice would you give them?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, perhaps that you you shouldn't you should focus on what you enjoy, like what genre you enjoy. Um, Also like yeah, just tell your story, and there's so many stories that gets told that are very similar to one another, and maybe you can use this and implement your own vision inside of this, and yeah, and yeah, it's a hardworking field. I very tense and yeah, lots of things, cool things can happen, lots of crazy things can happen, lots of sometimes you get limited by organizations. I know I had no funding for my film, so I had no trouble with this. But I think if you're making like a very high budget film with, I want to do too, but I don't know if I approach as high institutions. Be prepared or yeah.
Be ready for the unexpected and be able to roll with it.
Yeah, exactly. I think, going that route and heading for big corporation, um, of funding institution might be also quite limiting, but in the end you can get lots of out of it, yeah, I think. So yeah.
Okay. So, back to Demons in the Closet. It looks like I saw the number of laurels on the poster. So it looks like it's had a really good festival run so far. Is it still going out to festivals or is it like near the end of its run?
Um it's I'm still waiting for some acceptances or rejections. And
Okay.
yeah, let's see. It's like near the end, I think, near the end, but not there yet. But yeah,
So,
let's see what happens. Yeah, it has a great festival run, that's true. Lots of cool festivals like my film, yeah.
so if people want to see it, they should kind of look for their local festivals and some different ones. And like we were saying here, I'm based in Utah, and you had two festivals here in Utah, Film
Yeah.
Quest and Slam Dance. So that's kind of a nice combination there, along with a number of others. So if people want to see it, they should first look for the festivals, because I'll agree, it's always fun to see a movie on a larger screen. But after the festival run, do you have plans of distribution or release of Demon Summer?
Yeah, I just put it randomly, put it online like a few days ago on my YouTube channel. Yeah, but
Okay.
yeah,
So what is your YouTube channel? So if people want to,
yeah, sure. My YouTube channel is called Splitter Shot, SPLITTER and then SHOT, and yeah, they can watch my film there. Yeah, sure.
okay, so Splitter Shot on YouTube.
Yeah,
We'll make sure to add that into the notes so people can, after seeing this thing, go, oh, I can go watch it there.
well,
So
thank you
if
so
they,
much.
then along those same lines, since we're right there, what about for you? Where can they follow and get more besides Splitter Shot? Because I'm sure you have other things up there. Uh, what other locations, what other website or that do you have that people could follow and get more information about what James Smith is going to be doing?
Yeah, well, mostly on my social media channels, on my Instagram, on my YouTube, what's there? Yeah, on my mail address. Yeah.
Okay.
On Reddit, I don't know. Yeah,
So
there are
just kind
lots.
of search out on social media and go from there.
Yeah, but it's all the same name. It's all the same Splitter Shot name. So
Okay.
yeah,
So
keep
just
it.
look up that.
Yeah.
All right. And then also, since we're talking about that, what what's next for you? Do you have another project already in line or a story idea?
Yeah. I've written a feature film, like 70 pages so far, and I tried to get some funding in my hometown here, but it's a bit difficult. Let's see. I don't know. They don't like genre movies that much, so I have to see what happens. Perhaps I have to self-fund this thing, but I don't know. Need lots of money, lots of investors. Yeah, let's see what happens. And also, like, I'm working on another short stop motion animated film. Perhaps that's a more realistic approach. Keep the budget limited, and use my own little money I have for this film, and keep this one up. Yeah, I sure. That's also next step. Yeah.
So is the you were saying the short stop motion, is that kind of along the same lines of what you've been doing?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's also like a genre horror movie. Perhaps I think I want to make it a bit more disgusting than this one. But let's see what happens. Yeah.
And is your feature also looking at being a stop motion, or is that more action?
No, no, that would take too much time. I think it's a live action film. Yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps I try to implement like certain or stop motion scene. I don't know. I think that could work actually. Yeah.
Maybe use that to do a proof of concept of the movie and
Oh
use
yeah.
that. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit of, the ones stop motion is going to be along the same horror genre, like you're saying, a little bit more disgusting and bloody. What about the action, your full feature? Is that going to be along the same lines, or are you going to be exploring into something? Are you looking to explore something else?
Yeah, it's also like I think I want to head this slasher route, but keep it more having more of a serious message inside the film. Perhaps a bit social critical. I don't know. I have to still see what works and what doesn't work and what makes sense. And yeah, I mean I've written so many pages so far, so I don't know I don't want to give away too much now, but yeah, it's a bit more like social critical, I think, but with
Okay.
also like blood and gore and action and yeah. I
Okay.
I hope this project could work sometime. I don't know if I will be able to make this film in the next years, but let's see what happens if people are nice to me with funding. Yeah,
So
it's
if
it's on.
anybody, so we're going to tell people, if you're out there watching this and you like the short here, reach out and to James and on his social media channels and offer up some funding, right?
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
So just kind of out of curiosity, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you have a log line for the new film?
No, not yet, not yet. I think it's something along the line with like a person lives in a house and pe something comes along or something like this. Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's a bit basic, but I think it could work. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I think that's tried and true stories. We each have our own take on it.
yeah,
So that always works out well. So we're coming up to about a half hour, and I'll admit, I think talking about a 1 minute film for a half hour, we did really good.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Surprising, yeah.
No, it's been a pleasure talking with you. So I'm just want to ask you one final thing. Do you have any final words that you'd like to share about who you are, what you do, you know, advice, anything? What's your favorite movie that's playing in the theater right now? Whatever you want to go for.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm James. I'm a filmmaker, stop motion animator, and yeah, it was really awesome to be on on your podcast. And yeah, what film have I seen in cinema last? I don't know. I have to think about this actually. I think it's most like festival.
Well, even
Most
on the
like,
festival circuit, I mean, I personally one of those people.
oh yeah, I watched at the Sundance screening. I went there with a friend to when I was at Slamdance, there was also like Sundance screenings, and some it was difficult to get in, but we found a ticket, and I watched like In a Violent Nature. It's also like a slasher movie, but I think it was really cool and interesting approach, a bit different than other slasher movies. Yeah, I like this one a lot, but it's also like a long time ago now, 2 months. And in the between, I watched like lots of films at festivals. Yeah, lots of different horror films or genre movie. I don't know. Also other films.
Yeah.
Difference, yeah.
I'm one of those people. I love the independent films more
Yeah.
a lot of times in the larger studio because you can see the creativity coming out from the individuals like yourself who's saying, this is my story to tell. And
Yeah,
it's really a lot of fun. Okay,
that's
so I
true.
want to thank you, James, for joining me at Guildmaster Gaming and talking about Demons in the Closet. And to everybody out there, if you, like you're saying, you can find it's on Splitter Shot on YouTube, or you can watch Demons in the Closet. If you like what we're doing here, please like, share, and subscribe, because that will helps me to be able to reach out to other venues and different things to bring more of these type of interviews to everybody. So thank you once again. And we're going to sign off and say thank you, James.
Thanks for having me.